A few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of speaking with Stephen Waddington, PR guru extraordinaire, and one of the co-authors of the CIPR report in the role of AI tools on the PR industry. We talked about many great subjects, really interesting, but we did go on a little bit. We got too excited. So for the purposes of this presentation, we've cut it down to around 10 minutes, just to give you some of the best bits.
So we started this report in the summer of last year, and we had it ready for publication around November. This is 2022, and suddenly OpenAI launched itself onto the world, and we basically mothballed it and said, let's take some time to figure out what's going to happen here. OpenAI clearly hugely disruptive. So myself and the co-researcher and author Andrew Bruce Smith put it back, and we launched in spring this year. The reason we did that was because we recognized the huge disruptive impact that artificial intelligence would have on practice, and the huge boom we would see and are continuing to see around tools built on the OpenAI platform and other large language model platforms.
Fantastic. And it is a monumental shift. I mean, ChatGPT, AI tools have been developing for ages, but ChatGPT really seems to be the kind of the catalyst for this next wave of AI tools.
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. Automation and AI tools have been available within public relations for the last 5-10 years, depends how you define AI, but around that length of time. What happened with the launch of ChatGPT is suddenly everybody that's got access to a browser can now access a large language model at a command level prompt. So open the browser and you can start using the tool yourself. And so it's hugely democratizing. Anybody, whatever your level within the industry, can go and try it. And people are. Well, actually, there's two reactions to it. There's close it down, don't ever go near it, and the polar, oh, this looks really interesting, and there's a whole emerging series of applications for both generative and reductive in public relations.
What do you think are the biggest threats potentially facing the PR industry with these tools?
All the risk issues that are there with any form of technology are there with artificial intelligence. There's the additional one, which no one foresaw. I think this thing that's called hallucination, where a tool, if it doesn't have an answer, will literally make up stuff. And I've seen examples of even where you provide it with some data of your own, it will go on and it will go off and grab something external from the large language model, its own large language model, which seemingly just does not make any sense. So there is this additional hallucination impact.
Do you think there's merit then to actually highlighting when the information answer that you receive is based on existing information or whether it's generated content?
Benefit for transparency, for trust, building trust with an audience or a public, absolutely. And you're seeing a lot of media outlets tag content in exactly the way that you describe. What will happen long term is more difficult to say. I mean, we both, I've absolutely no doubt, within our daily lives use tools like word processors were built in spell checkers, built in grammar checkers, built in thesauruses, and I'm pretty sure none of us ever disclosed that we've used those. And almost inevitably the same thing I think will happen with AI tools, that they will just become embedded within the workflow and applications that we use.
Within the tools themselves, they need to clarify when they're making a different kind of suggestion or change.
Yeah.
So from generating information to presenting information to calculating information, do you think there's merit for them to be transparent, if not in necessarily the full underworkings, at the very least, the type of
That's a really interesting point. Yes, and they don't at the moment. So the example I cited, very common application of reductive AI, where you provide some text and ask it to extract the key, asking a large language model to extract the key arguments, the key points, the key assumptions from a piece of document. I've done live demonstrations where it's gone off and pulled something external that just is completely unrelated.
But it's interesting that some people embrace it wholeheartedly, others are being more tentative. And I think, as you say, if we have a bit more trust and transparency with the tools, not necessarily to fully understand the inner workings, but at the very least understand the methods applied to it, it might help our decision making a bit more to kind of trust when we can use these tools a bit faster.
I agree. There's a challenge in that, when any new technology like AI is launched into a market, there is no regulatory framework. So we're making the rules up literally as we go along. Yeah. And it happens that here we are, we're having a conversation right at the forefront of practice. And that's really, really important, because we need to have these conversations and figure this stuff out.
What kind of practices and what kind of approaches do you think PR agencies could take to making sure that they're using these tools for good?
So I think, first of all, you need to establish a fundamental position. So have guidelines within an agency environment or a communication team on what are the guardrails around using these types of technology, and that relates to yes, the conversation we're having about applications, but it also relates to issues like around data management, privacy, security. It's well known that many of the tools have different data management policies. Your data, if you use a tool like a free version of OpenAI, your data will be reincorporated back into the model, into the learning model, and from a security and data privacy point of view, you probably don't want that to happen. So, you need guidelines to cover those sorts of issues. And then issues, related to use of original content, copyright, and so forth. And, again, we are learning as we go and building the regulation and the framework as we learn.
At the moment, as we are self-regulating, the challenge is, how do we keep ourselves doing things in the best possible standards as these tools are evolving so rapidly? So do you think there is merit to using AI assistive tools to kind of check ChatGPT and others' content generation?
The only way you can do this and check the efficacy of content is to ask the models, ask the tools what they're using to source content and how they're creating it. So through prompting. There is, I stood up in a meeting with research colleagues at Leeds Business School back in February, where I said confidently, I'm pretty sure I can spot synthetic language produced by ChatGPT just because of the sentence construction, because the way it builds responses. It will typically provide a response, and then in summary, you'll get a final paragraph. In summary, here are the key points, and there's some obvious tells. And then a colleague stood up and asked ChatGPT to create some content, and then asked it to write in the style of Alan Bennett, asked it to write in the style of Ernest Hemingway, asked it to write in the style of Wordsworth, and I just blew my mind. You just could not tell that it was synthetic content.
If you were to talk to a PR agency that had never considered embracing AI-based systems until now, what do you think are the things that they should bear in mind?
So risk issues, related to hallucination, we talked about, the creation of misinformation, copyright issues, data privacy, positive aspects. Generative AI gets all the attention because it's almost like magic in how it will create content, the speed with which it will create content. But I think we overlook reductive AI and the ability to take large amounts of data of our own and make sense of that. Brilliant case this morning. the European Communication Monitor has published its annual report. It's 84 pages, and I've loaded it up into Claude securely and asked it to, what are the key assumptions, what are the key arguments, what should I know about this related to management, and it's summarizing it for me brilliantly in real time and producing one-page crib notes, which is incredibly powerful. So that's where I'd look.